Green Bay Packers traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles win this game 22-10. Top 5 graded Philadelphia Eagles that we had in this game. Linebacker Nakobe Dean at the very top of the list with the 90.3. Unfortunately, it looks like he suffered a knee injury that is likely going to keep him out of the playoffs. At least that was the initial diagnosis that I saw. You just hope that it's not anything that's going to bleed into next season. Cornerback Darius Slay next on the list with an 84.4. He also was out some in this game. Tight end Dallas Goedert, an 83.2. Offensive tackle Jordan Mailata, an 81.6. And then edge rusher Nolan Smith with a 76.5. Jalen Hurts in this game, a 66.0 on Green Bay side of things. Running back Josh Jacobs, he was their shining star in this game. I mean, it felt like there were plays where he was trying to will his team to victory. He's at the top of the list with a 91.1. Linebacker Edgerrin Cooper with a 78.4. Wide receiver Jaden Reed, a 76.5. Safety Javon Bullard, a 75.6. Defensive tackle Colby Wooden rounding it out at number 5 with a 66.5. And then Jordan Love, a 54.7 overall grade in this one. Dalton, your stat that told the story.
Nobody prevents downfield passing, downfield shots like the Eagles. This secondary look, this was a team who, despite a lot of the offensive controversies and anything with Nick Sirianni last year, their biggest problem last year is that they couldn't cover anyone. They were 28th in coverage grade. They needed to rebuild the secondary. They had Reed Blankenship. They had Darius Slay. They had to fill in the gaps around that. They've obviously done that. They went and got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. We have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean playing great. 89.4 coverage grade against 10-plus yard targets in this game, which is just silly when you consider, like, on the scale, if you're somewhere in the 60s, you had a really good game against downfield targets. 89.4 shutdown. Just shut down stuff as expected. They're the number 1 team in the NFL this season at preventing production on 10-plus yard targets. The lowest explosive pass rate allowed in the NFL this year at just 10.2%. Jordan Love in this game, 10-plus yards in the air. 3 for 10, 58 yards, 4 turnover-worthy plays. This is where we're at with the Eagles. Defense. I think this is the best defense in football right now.
Yeah.
This secondary, what Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming back have added to this secondary has changed the entire operation. On top of Vic Fangio just calling great games. I mean, this group is so fluent now in all of the zone concepts that Vic Fangio wants to run. If you're going to beat the Eagles, and I think the games where they've at least, teams have competed more so or even beaten them, you need to emphasize checking down and taking your yards after the catch. I think, remember back when the Bucs beat them earlier in the season? And,
yes.
And I think that's the last time. Is that the last time they lost?
Have they not lost since then?
I think maybe there was one other loss in between. It feels like they haven't lost since then. I think there was a loss to the Commanders too, but actually the same point holds.
Yes.
In those 2 games, those 2 teams emphasized underneath throws and picking up yards after the catch. You are not going to just take vertical shots on Philly. And the problem for the Packers is what I've seen lately, and you're about to dig in more on this. Jordan Love, and even some of the play calling from Matt LaFleur, they are trying to force these shots downfield with their route concepts, with Love's tendency sometimes to force downfield shots anyway. That's what we saw the first half of last year before he had the breakout. I thought the biggest part of his breakout was the average depth of target coming down a bit, and we're setting up those shots when we have the opportunity and the windows are actually there, instead of just trying to gunsling the ball into deeper areas of the field just because we want to. So I think that combination and the way the Eagles and their zone defenses prevent those big balls down the field, I think there was times when Love passed up check down opportunities that could have helped him. There were times when it just takes too long. Everything in the Packers offense takes too long right now, and you can't have that and wait for downfield routes, especially with as many injuries as they were racking up in this game. You mentioned Josh Jacobs was their best player.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, because the Eagles were sitting back going, okay, go ahead, work your way down the field 12, 13, 14 plays at a time.
Right.
They really only did it once. Jordan Love needs to start to understand those shots, just like Josh Allen's done it masterfully for the Bills. He needs to understand those deep shots get set up with sequences and play calling.
Yeah.
They're not just there because you want them to be there.
Because you can throw it.
And
there were a couple of throws where, it looked like he was just, the turnover-worthy play at the end of the game where he's throwing it sort of into triple coverage in the end zone, you get that. But, the Darius Slay throw was covered very well, and he ends up picking it off. The shot over the middle that Zach Bond picks off, you're kind of not seeing that player. But, there were multiple times throughout this game and this season, just to combine sort of what you're talking about with Jordan Love this season on true dropbacks. So we're talking about you're taking out play action, you're taking out RPOs, and you're taking out screens. So true, you are a drop back passer. Jordan Love this season, 13 turnover-worthy plays, 13 big-time throws, 15 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 70.9 passing grade, 70.6 adjusted completion percentage. His raw completion percentage was, I think, 59.6, something like that, but adjusted completion percentage is better because it takes drops out of the equation. It's not punishing the quarterback for that. So, Love was still good. Love did some good things, but he also was not nearly as consistent enough as you needed him to be a playoff caliber, go into Philadelphia and win type of a quarterback. Last year, same stipulations. True dropbacks from week 10 on, which remember, we talked about from week 9 or 10 on last season. We talked about Jordan Love as it was a top 5 passer in the NFL. He was incredible. In that situation, 85.9 passing grade, 21 big-time throws, and just 9 turnover-worthy plays, 17 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So he was a much better quarterback in this exact same situation last year. And I think it just shows that Jordan Love is still a little bit of a hot and cold quarterback. You mentioned it took Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, I'll throw him in there as well. When these two guys started to see the defensive revolution of a lot more too high stuff and a lot more of the defensive coordinators going, all right, throw it underneath. You got all the arm talent in the world. We don't trust you to be that patient for an entire game. Throw it underneath and beat us. Those two guys have figured it out. Those two guys will do it every single game. Lamar, I think, is in there as well, but Lamar, brings a little bit of that extra element of it with his legs too. I guess Josh Allen does as well. So I'll throw Lamar into that category. Burrow's sort of the same way. Burrow, he's played a lot of hey, all right, go ahead, be patient. Jordan Love, this whole season, for whatever reason, didn't want to be that patient. And I think that I agree with you. That's what he needs to work on going into next season. My most impressive in this game is Josh Jacobs. 18 carries, 81 rushing yards. In the receiving game, 3 targets, 3 catches, 40 receiving yards there. 10 missed tackles forced in this game. 0.53 missed tackles forced per attempt. 88.2 rushing grade. He was excellent. Like I said, he was willing his team to win this game at times. So, had to shout out Josh Jacobs. Although in a losing effort, he had a phenomenal game. You're most impressive in this one.
Another good day to be a corner. I'm doing it second time, pair of corners. Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell.
You should.
Just fantastic. Combined 9 targets in their direction, 3 catches allowed for just 19 yards. Both of them had an interception. 2.8 passer rating. 2.8 into the coverage of these two, Slay and Mitchell. And Quinyon, look, he hasn't had a lot of games where he's flashed the 90-plus grades and 3 pass breakups or whatever, the huge stats.
Right.
He's just been so smooth all season. You watch him and you just don't even remember that he's a rookie. The grasp that he's gotten maybe since probably week 6 or 7 on Vic Fangio's defense and his leverage and what he's supposed to do, he looks like a seasoned veteran out there. And Darius Slay, I'll tell you what, that ball, his interception was so perfectly thrown to him. I was almost like, man, that's a big-time throw from Jordan Love. That was perfectly in stride. Then I was like, oh, wait, Slay's the one that caught it. That's not how that works. I mean, it was just so smooth. And that was a huge play, too, because the Packers, still a low-scoring game. The Eagles were struggling to get it going on offense. And, Love taking a one-on-one shot. But these two guys, along with Cooper DeJean in the slot, it's just a world of difference from what they had last year. Mm-hmm. And I think Quinyon especially, he is just so, when I watch him every week this year, he's so darn consistent. He is the same guy. I really haven't seen him have a rookie moment or a rookie game. Mm-hmm. He's just the same guy every week and understands this defense better and better every single week. And then we already know Darius Slay's been good for a long, long time, right? And it just speaks to the theme, I think, still of this is right now the best. I think it's the best defense in football. I think 1 through 5, it's the best secondary in football. And if you're going to beat this team, You either better find matchups with linebackers or somebody on the inside. You better run the football, or you better emphasize big time. I'll be honest with you, and I know the Vikings or the Rams are no easier. I think they should be darn well glad they're not playing the Bucs, because I think the Bucs and the amount that they emphasize yards after catch, that's the best way you have to get out of after this Eagles defense. That's because, especially with Slay and Mitchell on the outside, you're not just going to chuck up go balls and complete them. It's not happening.
My most disappointing is just the Packers in the trenches. It just didn't feel like the Packers were really ready for this game. I think they struggled in the offensive trenches, struggled on the offensive side of the ball, but really on the defensive side of the ball, it was an area where they were performing pretty well, especially in run defense over the last month. Like, this was one of the better run defense units that we had in the league, and I thought they were really coming along. In this game against the Philadelphia Eagles, their worst run defense grade over the last month, their worst rush EPA per play allowed over the last month, the most missed tackles that they have versus the run over the last month. It's kind of like what we talked about. What was that? What was the Steelers? Was it? I can't remember which game we were going over. That was like over the last month. Like, they've been playing really well, and it's just like, all right, well, you had your worst game of the whole season.
The Chargers.
Yeah, whatever it was, and just the Packers. We went in this game and we said, "Oh, well, they're defending the run a little bit better, so maybe they'll." Worst game that they've had.
These
no
are
question.
Those two teams you mentioned, though. I mean, when you're playing the Eagles and the Ravens, I kind of get it a little bit. I mean, you look at those, especially the Eagles with their offensive line. I mean, you got those front five been really the most consistent. Them and the Lions.
No, 100%.
Like, and they do, and I think it does speak to when you look at the games the Packers have lost. It's in progress. It's better. You got McKinney. Edgerrin Cooper's going to be a star, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eagles, Lions, Vikings, these teams that attack the middle of the field, run and pass, that's where the Packers have to get better. The middle of their defense. And they have questions at corner, too, now. And I know Jair Alexander didn't play in this game. They have quite this. It's just that right down between the hashes of their defense. That's where they need to get better. We've seen it in the past in the passing game against the Lions.
Yeah.
We see it now in the run game against Philly. They're not physical enough. I think you said it exactly right on both sides of the ball. They're not physical enough to play with these top-tier teams.
The Eagles were just the better team.
Absolutely.
I think no matter how you slice up everything that this game was, the Eagles are better than the Packers, 100%. I think that there's some. We're about to get to our last game here in a second with Tampa and Washington, where I'd go, you play that game 10 times, it might go 5-5. You know, like Washington might win 5 of those, Tampa might win 5 of those. You play Packers-Eagles 10 times, I think the Eagles win 8 times.
At least.
Yeah. I think the Eagles win 8. Because the Packers are still a good team. So, like, I'd give them at least 2 out of 10. But clearly, the Packers are the better football team. The Eagles are the better football team. I think they win this game. Even if you take it out of Philadelphia, I think that's the case. Philly wins 7-8 times. They're just the better football team.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this game was about.
I think, again, just like the Chargers we had earlier, I think the Packers, when you lose a playoff game, especially like this, and you lost pretty handily, the needs are obvious. One, they have to figure out what the shuffle is on the interior of this offensive line. And Jordan Morgan being hurt most of the year didn't help. 2, I'm sorry, they need a receiver. All this talk about, do the Packers need a number 1 receiver? Matt LaFleur, they don't. We've got a great group of – no, you need a guy who can just – ball out one-on-one. Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Jefferson. You need St. Brown. You need that guy. The Packers don't have that guy, especially after – I mean, I know everybody got hurt in this game as it went on. It was just a mash unit. But the third thing, and I'm going to just throw this in there, they need an edge rusher.
Oh, yeah.
The fall-off of Rashawn Gary needs to be studied. Lucas Van Ness not getting it done. You want a stat I've never seen in a game before? Their edge rushers in this game, pass rush win rate.
No way.
0. Their edge rushers combined, they pressured Jalen Hurts 3 times. 2 of them were because Hurts held the ball too long. 1 of them was unblocked on a blitz. 0% pass rush win rate.
I mean, that's also Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson stat, but that's the best tackle duo in the NFL. There's no question about it.
I've never seen a 0.
There's no question about it. It's the best tackle duo in the NFL, especially with how they played this year. But still, it's got to be above 0%.
Usually, if it's real bad, you see it below 10. You see the single digits. I've never seen a 0.
Wow.
They didn't clean win a single rep off the edge all night, which is, you mentioned Johnson and Mailata. It's tough. It's obviously tough. It's probably going to be low. It shouldn't be 0. And then the weirdest part about Jeff Hafley only blitzed Jalen Hurts 5 times the whole game. And to me, when I watch Jalen Hurts, I go, you got to blitz him. That's when he struggles, when you speed him up and you got to blitz him. And they just didn't do it. And that They need a receiver. They need interior offensive line. They need an edge presence. They've got a shopping list in the offseason for sure.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.